We
This
begin the
conference
book.
will now be recorded.
Good morning. We begin the book of Shmot, the book of Exodus, and it starts on page 292 in the Stone Chumash, and it starts in a very, very strange manner. Ve'ele Shemot. And these are the names of the children of Israel. Habayim Mitzrayim, who came to Egypt, ate Yaakov along with Jacob, Ish Tobao, and then we list their names. What's very strange, of course, is that they were already down in Egypt, right? In the beginning, in Parshat Vayigash, we have over here, just one second. That they all came down to Mitzrayim. Yeah, back on page 258 in Parsha Vayigash, Perek Mem Vav 46, verse 8. Ve'ela Shmot b'nei Yisrael habayim Mitzrayim. And these are the names of the children of Israel who came down to Egypt. Yaakov uvanav, Yaakov and his sons. Bechor Yaakov, we go through the whole list over there of all of the Shivim Nefesh, all of the 70 who went down. So we're already down in Mitzrayim. Why are we repeating now the Shmot? And these are the names of those who went down to Egypt. Rashi says, right, even though we counted them in their lifetime, now we're going to count them again, right, as that generation is coming to an end, right? But, right, because here it says, Vayamat, verse 6 back in Shemot, and Joseph and his brothers and the whole generation died. So therefore, Rashi says, why are we repeating it again? Since we counted them in their lifetime, we count them upon their death. Lo dia chivatam, to show how dear they are to God. Shenim shalu l'kochavim, that they're compared to the stars. And many, many different commentators explain in what way we compare to the stars, right? So a star, right? So it seems to be just a little twinkle there in the sky, but in fact it is a blazing sun creating so much. So to every person from a distance, they seem to be just whoever they might be. But actually, when you get to know them, you see how the brilliance, you see the unique qualities that every person has. Another thought that I just had now as I'm talking is that a star, when we see a star, we're not seeing that star. We're seeing the light that star emitted hundreds, thousands, millions of years ago. That star might very well no longer be existing, but its light is first reaching us, right? And therefore, maybe we're like the stars in that our effect can go long after we're no longer here, but our illumination could go on. That's Rashi. Ramban quotes Rashi, and then this year I'm trying to learn Ramban with the Parsha. So the Parsha shares will be very heavy on the Ramban. You'll pardon me. That's what I was dealing with this week. Yeah. But he says, but why does it say ve'ele shmot? Why do you start a book with and these are the names? Why start with ve and these are the names? Right? You don't start a book with and. So Ramban explains, we've mentioned this before, a beautiful, beautiful approach that each sefer, each book has its purpose, what it is all about. And therefore, the book of Bereshit, he said, the book of Genesis was about creation. Good morning, Cheryl. Creation of the world, creation of the moral principles that the patriarchs and the matriarchs laid down. That's what that book is all about. and therefore that book began with Bereshit and ended with the death of Yosef, right? Bereshit ended with the death of Yosef. Why? Because that's the end of that Avot era, the patriarch matriarch era. Why? Because Yosef was in between. Yosef was a tribe. Yosef was also an Av, a patriarch, in that he had two sons. Well, two of his sons were in fact tribes. Menashe and Ephraim got the status of tribes. So he is the close of that whole of creation and the individuals of the book of Bereshit. Now we begin the book of Shmot, and this is the book of Galut and Geula, of exile and redemption. And therefore, it's not just a history book. Well, we already had Joseph's death, so why are we going back to going down to Egypt, which took place a bunch of chapters earlier? No, this is the book of exile and redemption. We have to begin with the very start of the exile. When did the exile begin? With all of them coming down to Mitzrayim. And that's why we are reiterating. Just one second. Okay, so he explains, so why does it begin with Va'ela Shmot? Because it's an exact copy of that pasuk back in Bereshit, letting us know that we're going back to that point because this is the start of the exile. And how does this book end? If it's the book of exile and redemption, it will need to end with redemption. The only problem is, which redemption is it ending with? You might want to say, oh, the Exodus from Egypt. It begins with the entry into Egypt and it will end with the Exodus from Egypt. But that's not the end of the book of Shmot. That takes place in Parsha B'Shalach. Good morning, Jenny and Janet. That takes place in the Parsha of B'Shalach. Oh, so no, Rabbi, come on, you got to be spiritual. When's the point of redemption? Mount Sinai. That's what it will end with. But it doesn't end with that because that takes place in Parshat Yitro, in the middle of Shmot. Oh, so it'll end with entering the land of Israel. That's redemption. But it doesn't end with that because that does not take place in the 5 books of the Torah. That begins with prophets, with Yoshua, with Joshua, where you enter the land of Israel. So what is the Geula? What is the redemption that this book of exile and redemption ends with? So take a quick look on page 540, and let's look at the very last Parsha, meaning the last paragraph of the book of Shmot. So it begins, and these are the names of the children of Israel who came down to Egypt, the start of the exile of the Galut, and it concludes with verse 34. That's the start of that last paragraph. Vayichas ha'anan et ohel moed. The cloud covered the tent of meeting. Ukvod Hashem, and the honor of the glory of Hashem filled malay et hamishkan, filled the tabernacle. And Moshe couldn't enter the Ohel Moed because the cloud was there, and the glory of God had filled the Mishkan. And when the cloud would come off of the Mishkan, the children of Israel would travel on all of their travels. And if the cloud would not ascend, they would not travel. Ad Yom Ha'elato, until the day that it would lift up, indicating it was time to continue their travels in the Midbar, in the desert. Ki anan Hashem al HaMishkan, because the cloud of Hashem's presence, glory, was on the Mishkan, on the tabernacle, Yomam, by day, the Eish, and fire would be on it, Laila Bo, Le'enei Kol Beit Yisroel, before the eyes of all the house of Israel, B'chol Masehem, and all of their journeys. So Ramban says, what is the state of Geula, the state of redemption that concludes this book of exile and redemption? Having God's presence there with us constantly. Even though we were not yet in the land of Israel. But when we have Hashem's presence there with us on a constant basis, he says as follows, we came to Mount Sinai and we made a Mishkan, and then God was resting Shechinato Beinehem, was resting his Shechina amongst us. Then we returned El Ma'alat Avotam. We had returned to the stature, the height of our predecessors, our ancestors, which was Veheim Merkava. They were, so to speak, the chariot of God. Va'az nechshavu ge'ulim. And then we were considered to be redeemed. We've reached the point that we need to reach. Then we were ge'ulim.
As good as it gets.
Hmm?
As good as it gets.
As good as it gets. Don't get no better than that. That's right. That's as good as it gets. That's the ge'ulim, the state of redemption that we reached. Beautiful.
So could we also assume because Hashem was with us outside of the land then, that he's still with us now?
Yes. Well, we don't have the Mishkan. We don't have that clear presence. But yes, right? Cheryl brought up a beautiful point. And I just saw this. Rabbi Schwab, he has a beautiful book on tefillah, on prayer. And he looks at the last, right? Shema Yisroel Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, right? So we're accepting that Hashem, Rachamim, compassion, is Elokeinu, is judge. So no matter what we're going through in life, no matter where we are on a national level, where we are in terms of clear godliness or not, it's all Echad, it's all the same God. He says that's what, how does the Shema end off? Ani Hashem Elokeichem. I am Hashem your God, who took you out from the land of Egypt. Mi beit avadim. Ani Hashem Elokeichem. I am Hashem your God, who took you out from the land of Egypt, from the house of slavery. I am Hashem your God. Why repeat it? You just said, I am Hashem your God, who took you out from the land of Egypt, land of slavery, from slavery. I am Hashem your God. Why the repetition? And he says, it's letting us know, I am Hashem your God when I'm doing the miracles and breaking nature and plagues and splitting the sea and Mount Sinai. Ani Hashem Elokeichem. And now when you're living at a time of what we call Hester Panim, Hester Panim is that God's face, so to speak, is hidden from us. Ani Hashem Elokeichem. Nothing has changed except for the visibility, right? I am the same Hashem, your God, who's there with you. Whether, to answer you, Cheryl, yes, right? No matter where we are geographically, no matter where we are on the span of time, Jewish history, Ani Hashem Elokeichem. He goes on to say so beautifully that what we say afterwards, we have 16 descriptive terms of Hashem, all right? And each one has this revealed and this hidden. Emet, true. Yatziv. Yatziv means true in Aramaic. So it's true when we're emet and when we are speaking Aramaic in an exile. Emet v'yatziv. V'nachon, it's apparent, it's there. V'kayam, and it's lasting. Sometimes it's apparent, sometimes it's lasting. Ahuv v'chaviv, it's beloved, it's cherished, right? When something's in front of you, it's beloved, right? But when we say, I cherish, what do we cherish? We cherish the memories. I cherish the time we spent together, right? So then we have those 16 terms, which he says are actually 8 double terms, with each one referring first to when there's the Gilui, the revealed, and the second one when it is the hidden, when it is the Hester Panim, right? And we always point out, what does Hester Panim mean? Hester means I'm hiding my face. right? When I hide my face, you don't see my face, but I'm looking through my fingers. I see all of you right now. That's the Hester Panim of Hashem, that his face is hidden from us, but we are not hidden from him. And that's where Schwab says so beautifully, I'm Hashem, your God, who took you out of Egypt, from the house of slavery. I am Hashem, your God. Even when there is that Hester Panim, don't think for a moment that I'm not equally involved in all that's going on. Let's pick up Pasuk Chet. Vayakam melech chadash al Mitzrayim. And there arose a new king on Egypt, Asher lo yada et Yosef, who did not know Yosef. Rashi says, what do you mean? Right? How could he not, right? So is it Melech Hadash, is it really a new king? Or is it a new approach? Rashi brings two opinions. Who did not know Yosef? Well, if it's a new king, if it's the same king, he certainly knew Joseph. And if it's a new king, right, a very cursory history course in Egypt, he would know all about Joseph. But Rashi says, Asa atzmo ki'ilu lo yad'o. He acted as if he didn't know him, right? And this, we'll see a lot of, we mentioned in Bereshit the idea of Masa Avot Simul Banim. What happens to the Avot is a sign for the Banim, for the children. We're going to see a lot of echoes of that here also. That here Yosef had saved Mitzrayim, had saved Egypt, and had enriched Paro tremendously, but at that point already, it was no longer expedient they no longer needed Yosef, right? Or his people or his descendants. So then we forget very quickly. The Nazis, Yimach Shemam, the Jewish decorated World War I decorated soldiers who fought valiantly for Germany in World War I, those decorated war veterans, when they went to Auschwitz to be murdered and gassed, they weren't sent in cattle cars. They went in nicer trains. That's how Germany, the Nazis, treated the decorated war veterans. They had to give them honor, right? Asher lo yada et Yosef. He did not know Yosef. But the other commentators point out, lo yada et Yosef, he didn't learn the lesson of Yosef. He didn't know the Yosef. He didn't learn the lesson of Yosef. What was the lesson of Yosef? Yosef had his dreams, and the brothers said, which Yosef understood were prophecy. The brothers said, oh, we'll make sure. Let's see, let's see what will be of his dreams. We will stop his dreams, and we will sell him as a slave down to Egypt. And that way, there's no way we'll ever be bowing down to him. And Hashem says, fair enough. Fair enough. That's how you want to play? Fair enough. Your actions will bring about exactly what you're trying to prevent. It's your actions that will bring about your bowing down. The sun, the moon, the 11 stars, the sheaves, all bowing down to Yosef. What you're doing to try to stop the Devar Hashem, the will of God, that is going to be utilized to bring it about. And that is the lesson of Yosef. The lesson of Joseph is that there is a master plan of this world. And we have our free will. But our free will does not change the master plan. All it changes is the role that we will play in the master plan. Are we the hero? Are we the villain? That is up to us. That is what our free will determines, what role we play. However, the master plan is fulfilled. That was the lesson of Yosef. The brothers tried to change the master plan, tried to make sure Yosef would never rise. God utilized their actions to make it happen.
Rabbi?
Paro did not know Yosef. Yes, Janet?
So only on account of that did Hashem use this vehicle of famine for all these other lands? Was it only the brothers' actions, or were there other factors involved? I mean,
God has myriad factors involved. But in terms of the brothers, this was the master plan being played out. They could have sent him down there, right? He could have gone down. I think the Medrash says that Jacob, right? They could have they were going to go down to Egypt, right? He could have gone down in a beautiful chariot. Joseph could, like his father did, came down in a beautiful chariot. Their actions caused that, right? That he went down the way that he did. But as we discussed on Shabbos a few weeks ago, Yosef said to them, that is what made me, and therefore I'm accepting it all. But our free will does not change the master plan. Our free will changes the role that we play. Very beautifully, the Vilna Gaon has a whole explanation on Megillat Esther, the book of Esther. And he explains that in addition to the actual storyline, this is the story of life, of neshamot coming down to the world, and the challenges that we have here in this world. And he says, Achashverosh, that represents Olam Hazeh, this world, right? And all the pleasures of this world. And Haman represents the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. And Mordechai represents the Yetzer Hatov, and Esther is the body, is a person in this world that lives in the palace of Achashverosh, lives in the palace of all the glory of this world, but has the influences of Haman and has the influences of Mordechai. And that's what we say that Esther, she remained loyal to Mordechai throughout. So he explains, Achashverosh threw the big party for 180 days. He says that is Olam Hazeh with all of its opportunities. And it says there that he told, right, Lasot kirtzon ish v'ish. At this party, they were meant to do, right, he commanded all of his officers there, like the leaders, to do the ratzon ish v'ish, to do the will of each and every person, right? Which on a simple meaning, don't force anyone. They want to eat, they eat. They want to drink, they drink. Whatever they want, no one should be forced. Ein ones, the pasuk says, no one is forced. The Vilna Gaon says, to do the ratzon of ish v'ish. Well, the Gemara says, who's ish? Who's called ish in Megillat Esther? Mordechai. Ish Yehudi, Hayab, Shushan Abira. There was a Jewish man in Shushan Abira. Who else is called Ish in Megillat Esther? Haman, Ish Tsar V'oyev, this terrible person. So the Gemara says that it was to do the will of Ish v'ish, meaning that the two officers who were in charge of this big party were Mordechai and Haman. We know they were both high officers in the Achashverosh kingdom. But the Vilna Gaon says on a deeper level, no one is forced when it comes to Olam Hazeh to do the will of Ish v'ish. You want to become an Ish? You want to become a Mordechai? No one's stopping you. You want to become an Ish? You want to become a Haman, a Haman? No one's stopping you. Right? You have the choice over the role that you play. And Paro did not learn that lesson of Yosef. As we'll see, his astrologers were telling him that the Redeemer of Israel will be born. So that's what led to the decree of every boy needs to be thrown into the Nile. According to the sages, even Egyptian boys on that day, everyone needs to be thrown into the Nile. So Hashem says, oh, you think that's going to stymie my will? we're just going to utilize that. And of course, Moshe is thrown in and saved by Paro's own daughter. So the decree that Paro made to make sure that the Jewish Redeemer would never rise up, the decree is what brought the Jewish Redeemer into his house, so he can house him, he can feed him, he can clothe him, he can educate him, and he will learn how to become the Moshiach, the Redeemer of Israel. That was the lesson of Yosef, Asher lo yada, the lesson of Yosef that he did not know, that he chose to ignore at his own peril. Vayomer elamo, and he said to his people, Hine, behold, verse 9, Am b'nei Yisroel, this nation of children of Israel, Rav va'atzum mimenu, is greater and more numerous and stronger than us. Hava nitchak malo, let us deal in a wise, crafty manner. Pen yirba, lest they will multiply, and it will be when there will be a war, they will join up with our enemies, they'll fight against us and go up from the land. Ramban says beautifully over here, this hava nitzchak malo, this was his plan. Paro did not want to start killing them. That would cause a tremendous rebellion. Why are you killing these innocent people who came to the land by the command of, who were invited here into the land? People won't allow that to happen, right? People will not allow that to happen. So he said, let's do it in a wise manner, that they won't feel this enmity. So first, he put on them this tax. Then, right, so that's first, right? What does he say first? What should we do? Ve'asim alav sarei misim. He put upon them taskmasters. He put upon them this mas, right? What was the mas? What was the tax? That they needed to do some of the building. Okay, fair enough. That is a communal effort, right? And then he goes on to say, we'll see more in detail as we go through the psukim, right? But the Jews should not feel that they're being singled out, right? But hey, if you're living in the land, right, you've got to pay your taxes. Then he commanded all the boys, he commanded his people to throw the children into the Nile. It wasn't the police. It wasn't the army. No, he was able to have this deniability, right? Let the people do that, right? You find a Yehudi, throw him into the river. If the father comes complaining to the king or to the officers, we'll say, oh, we will investigate this. This can't be. We will get to the bottom of this, and of course they never will. But he says, Kasher hutra ritzuat hamelech. Once the king was allowing this, once the people knew the king was allowing this, hayu hamitzrim mechapsim habatim. Now the Egyptians went searching in their houses and turning into enemies and pulling out the children of the Jewish families. And this is something that we've seen. Once it is allowed, right? Kristallnacht. The fire department was right there. The fire department was right there, hosing down the adjacent buildings to the burning shuls to make sure that, heaven forbid, the adjacent buildings shouldn't catch fire. Once people see that, then the then all hell breaks loose. All hell breaks loose, and that's what happened.
Didn't Fred Johnson live through that as a child?
Yeah. Fred Johnson told us about Kristallnacht. Yeah.
Sends his regards.
Yeah. He's such a fine person. Yeah. And that is, that's what happens once it's allowed. Then there's no There's no controls. So those were the stages, right? Oh, I left out one. And the other stage was the miyaldot. That we'll soon see. Let's go further. The Asima love Sarai Misim, he placed upon them these different officers. And he built these storehouses, Pithom and Ramses. But that wasn't working. The Kasher Yanuo told the more he afflicted them, Kain Yirbeh, the Kain Yifrotes. They were multiplying even more. The Yakutzim Bnei Yisroel. And they became disgusted by these Bnei Yisrael. Then Vayavid Mitzrayim Bnei Yisrael B'Farach, Rabban explains, and then all the Egyptians were able to find work and make the Jews do work for them. Vayamarut Chayim, and they embittered their lives. Ba'avodav kasha, with hard work, chom v'nim, all the difficult work out in the fields, and everything that made them work, it was B'Farach. And then he told the Miyaldot. He told the Jewish midwives. One of them was named Shifra, the other was named Pua. And he said, when you give birth to Briot, see alav nayim. Even the woman giving birth should not be aware of what you're doing. You'll be able to notice if it is a boy or a girl. In benhu, if it's a boy, v'amiten oto, kill that boy. But they won't know. You'll say, oh, right, the cord was around the neck. Oh, the baby died. If it's a bati, if it's a daughter, vachaya. Right? But these, then she can remain alive. But these miyaldot, these midwives feared God. According to the Medrash, they were actually Miriam and Yocheved. And they did not do what he said. They kept the boys alive. And then what happened? Chav Bet, page 296, verse 22. Then Paro commanded L'chol Amo, his whole nation, Lamor, saying, Kol aben hayilod, every boy that's born, throw him into the river. And the daughters can be kept alive. And that is what led now to Moshe and all that happened. But the Ramban again says this decree was not a very long-lasting decree, right? He said that Aaron, by the birth of Aaron 3 years earlier, this was not the case. And we don't find this continuing after Moshe. He gives an interesting possible why, but let's start Perek Bet, chapter 2. Vayelech ish mi beit Levi, a man went from the house of Levi, vayikach, and he took et bat Levi, and he took the daughter of Levi, vatara isha, she became pregnant, vatele ben, gave birth to a son, vateroto kitovu, she saw that he was good, vatitzpeneu, when she hid him shlosha yerachim for 3 months, and then we'll soon see what she had to do at that point. So we always like to point out the birth of Moshe was not supernatural. A man from the house of Levi went and took the daughter of Levi, and she got pregnant. Nothing, no immaculate conception over here. She got pregnant, and she gave birth to a son. And who is that? That is the greatest prophet that ever lived, that ever will live. That is going to be Moshe. Right? We don't mention the parents. There was a father, there was a mother. Later on, we'll give all the yichus. Rabban says we didn't want to go into the whole yichus, the whole lineage over here, because then we would get sidetracked onto that. We wanted to just keep. And according to the Medrash, this was a reuniting. According to some, this is going back, Ein Muktam Ucha B'Torah. The Torah is not always in chronological order. And this took place at the first marriage. Miriam's been born already. Aaron's been born already. And then we'll hear about Moshe's birth. But according to Rashi and the Medrash, this was a renewal of their vows. It was a re-wedding. They had separated because who wants to bring a child into this world? And according to the Medrash, Miriam said to them, "You're worse than Paro. Paro's decree was against the boys. You're against the boys and the girls." They remarried, they gave birth to a son, and they saw Kitovhu, that he was good. So Ramban says, find me a mother who doesn't think that their child is good, is the most beautiful, the cutest, the smartest. In my morning Gemara class, so one of the guys online had his grandson on his lap for a bunch of days. They didn't have his grand. I said, what happened to him? He said, oh, we're not at the house anymore. He said, but he's so special. He's so this. And I said the grandfather. Right? So we say Kitovu, they saw that he was good, right? But Ramban says, of course, it must be they saw something that was beyond the usual good, right? According to the Medrash, so Miriam, the sister, had a prophecy, you will have a child to be the Redeemer. They felt there was something special over here. So what do? And when she couldn't hide the child anymore, put him into a little basket and put him basuf, by the reeds, al sfat hayor, by the edge of the river. And his sister stood at a distance to know Mayasalo, to know what will be of him, according to the Medrash, to know what will be of her prophecy. And then the worst thing possible. Who comes down to the river? Bat Paro, the daughter of the one who made the decree. The daughter of Paro went down to wash over there. She saw the teva, and she sent forth her hand, and she brought it. And she opened it, and she saw the child there crying. And she had compassion. And she said, Mi Yaldei Ivrim zeh, this must be from the children of the Ivrim. Then the sister said, should I go and call a wet nurse from the Ivrim? Right? What's missing over here? So the Medrash explains that Moshe, according to the Medrash, Moshe was not nursing from anyone. And they explained that mouth that was going to be speaking peh el peh, mouth to mouth, face to face to God, could only nurse from a Jewish mother. So she said, should I go call a Jewish midwife? And Paro said, Lechi, go. And she went, and she called the mother of the child. Paro said to her, take this child and nurse him for me, and I will pay you for that. And the woman, took the child and nursed him. Once again, we see the beautiful orchestration that a moment before she was afraid of her son's life, puts him into a basket, puts him into a river, and in the end, she's being paid by Paro and his daughter to nurse this child. Vayigdal hayeled, now he's got weaned. V'tvi'eu lebat Paro, and they brought him to the daughter of Paro. Vayihi la leven, and she was to him as a son. Yeah. Yes. So did he know? Did he not know? So the Ramban says, interestingly, he said that this decree did not last very long. And he says, just one second. This decree did not last long. With the birth of Aaron, there was no decree. And it seems when Moshe was born, it was canceled. He says, Ulai bat Paro. Perhaps the daughter of Paro, Bechemla alav, with the compassion that she had on him, on Moshe, Amra said to her, Lavia, Shalo Yasekain, we can't do this anymore. Or, Kasher Nishma Kimet HaMelech Niyah Hadavar Bitaloto. Or he says, interesting, once the word got out, remember he said before he wanted to keep it clandestine, that it's not the king who's doing this, it's not the government. Once word got out that the government might have been involved or was involved, so then they canceled it, right? But yeah, That is, I agree with you, Ruti. That is the lesson of Yosef that was not learned. Paro went along with this because we're going to soon see that Moshe knew that he was Jewish. Right? That's the next pasuk. And it was in those days, pasuk Yud Aleph, Vayigdal Moshe. Moshe got older, and he went out to see his brothers how they were doing. And Ramban says, because they told him, he went out to see his brothers. Shegadal Vayel right? And he says, and he went out to his brothers. What do you mean to his brothers? The Ramban says, he gidulo asher hu Yehudi. They told him that he was a Yehudi. So he went out to see what was going on. But let's go back one pasuk again. And that was, she named him Moshe. What is the most commonly found pasuk repeated throughout the Torah? Tens and tens and tens of times. The most famous pasuk in the Torah, Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe lemor, and God spoke to Moses, saying, the Gemara Megillah says, speaking about names, it said, the book of Divrei Yom, that's Chronicles, books of names of all the generations. It says, Kol dvarecha echad heim. All of your words are really one. All the names you mention are really one, and we know how to explain it. The pasuk says, and his wife, the Yehudiah, she gave birth to Yered, Avi, the father of Gedor, and gave birth to Chaver, Avi, the father of Socho, and to Yekutiel, Avi, the father of Zanoach. Eila b'nei, his wife, the Yehudiah, gave birth to all of them. These are the children of Batya, Bat Paro. These are the children of Batya, the daughter of Paro, Asher lakach Mered, who was taken by a husband by the name of Mered. 1 second, this is Batya, the daughter of Paro. Why are we calling her Yehudiah? Oh, because she denied her idolatry. As it says, she went down to wash by the Or. Rav Yochanan says this was no simple washing. This was immersion. She was cleansing herself from the idolatry of the house of her father. 1 second, she gave birth. She didn't give birth. She raised him. Yalda, Vavrabuya Rabite, she raised him, didn't give birth to him. This teaches us, we see this in many places, whoever raises an orphan in their house is considered as if they gave birth to that person. Yared, who were the sons we mentioned? Yered, Avi Gedor. Yered, who's that? That's Moshe. And why was he called Yered? Why was he called Yered? Because he brought down the man. He brought down the manna from the heavens. Gedor, fenced. Why was he called fence? Because he would fence the breaches amongst Israel. Chaver, why was he called Chaver? Shechiber, he attached Israel, connected us to our Father in heaven. Socho, why was he called Socho? Because he was like a protective sukkah for the children of Israel. Yekutiel, why was he called Yekutiel? Because Kavu Yisroel, we hoped, we reached out to God in his days. Zanoach, why was he called Zanoach? Because he cast off Avonotayim, the sins of Israel. So, yeah, Avi, Yered, Avi, Gedor, Chaver, Avi, Socho. You could tell Avi, Zanoach. Why all these Avis? Av b'Torah, he was a father in Torah. Av b'Chachma, a father in wisdom. Av b'Neviot, a father in prophecy. The Eila b'nei Batya, these are the daughters, the children, meaning all Moshe of Batya. Asher lakach Mered, who was married by Mered. Mered? V'chi Mered Shemo, v'halo Kalev Shemo. Right? We taught that Kalev, when she converted, Kalev married her. Why is it called Mered? Oh, come, let Kalev Kalev was one of the 10, one of the 12 spies, right? He and Yoshua gave a good report. Let Kalev come, who rebelled against the counsel, the devious plot of the other spies, and let him marry the daughter of Paro, who rebelled against the idolatry of her father. Elsewhere, what do we say? But what was his actual name? They saw that he was Tov. His name was Tuvia. So we have all these names of Moshe, right? He was by his mother for 2 years. She gave him a name. What was the name she gave him? Tov or Tuvia. And then we have all these other names of Moshe. Why do we go with the name that Batya gave him? Why is Moshe throughout the Torah? Moshe, 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 Moshe. Why does it go with the name that Batya gave him? Further, it's a strange name. She called him that because from the water, I drew him from the water, right? So that doesn't describe Moshe. That describes what she did, right? She should be called Moshe. She's the puller, the drawer from the water. Why does this become the name that Hashem spoke to who? Not to Tov, not to Tuvia, not to Avi, Socho, you name it. Why does this become the name of Moshe throughout the entire Torah?
She raised him and she saved his life and she raised him.
She saved his life. She raised him. And by doing that, she put into him this koach, this strength, this force of Moshe, of pulling people out of the water, of pulling people out from the mire that they get stuck in, the swamp. That was Moshe's M.O. His Moshe, his M.O. was always pulling people out from the situation that they are in. And that became his essence. A name is your essence. We mentioned a number of times. Parents have a prophecy or close to a prophecy when they name their children. Aaron is who you are at the Shoresh HaNeshama. Ruth is who you are. Hebrew name, Cheryl? Shira. Shifra. Oh, your Parsha. Shifra, right? That is who you are. Yisroel, Yehuda, that's who I am. And each of us, that's who we are. That is our essence. That is our core. And that is why we, at the end of the Amidah, we add in a pasuk that aligns with our name. Why? Because the Kabbalah, the Kabbalists say that when a person goes up to the heavens, the first thing they ask is, what is your name? And a person gets so confused, they forget their name on a deeper level. So this is a way to remember the name, but a deeper level, when they're asking your name, they're asking you, what was your purpose? Why is it that you were sent down to this world? And did you do that? And if a person forgets their name, that means that they got a little distracted along the way and forgot the purpose, the mission for which each of us was sent to this world. So that's what a name is. A name speaks of the very essence of the person. And all we hear about Moshe before God comes to speak to him about 80 years later, because what we hear about is as follows. Vayihi, and it was Vayimim Ahem in those days. Vayigdal Moshe grew up. Vayetzei el Echav, Pasuk Yud Aleph, page 298, the top verse. He went out to his brothers. That's what we see. According to Ramban, he was told that he was a Jew. He wanted to see his brothers. Vayar basivlotam, and he saw their burdens. Vayar, and he saw Ish Mitzri, an Egyptian man, Makeh, hitting, Ish Ivri, an Ish Ivri, Me Echav, from his brothers. Vayifen ko v'ko, he saw that this Egyptian was mercilessly beating this Jew almost to death. He saw ki ein ish. He saw that there was no man. Simple meaning, no one would see what he was doing. Deeper meaning, no great person would ever be born from this Mitzri. Vayachet ha-Mitzri, and he smote that Egyptian. Vayitminehu b'chol, and he hid him there in the sand. This is Moshe over and over and over, right? Helping, right? Chet ha'egel, God says, I'm going to destroy the nation. God says, Moshe says, and I'll make a nation out of you. Moshe says, then count me out of it, right? I'm not in them, right? Always, always, always putting himself out. And that is, right, he went out the next day and he saw two Ivrim fighting, and he said, why are you hitting one another? They said, right, getting involved. Who made you an officer over us? Are you going to kill us like you killed the Mitzri? Moshe understood that the matter is out. Paro heard about it, wanted to kill Moshe. Moshe fled from before Paro and went to the land of Midian. Ramban says, keep in mind, this all happened very quickly after the death of the killing of the Egyptian. Now he's on the lam for decades, but no great events were taking place, so we don't hear about it. He goes to the Be'er, he goes to the well, and the Kohen of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came to draw water to fill up the troughs to water their flock. Shepherds came and chased them away. Moshe gets involved. Vayakam Moshe stood up, Vayoshian, saved them, Vayashk et Tzonam, and gave their flocks to drink. That is the name that Batya gave to Moshe, is the essence of Moshe, and she injected that into Moshe. That became who Moshe was, and that's why her name is the name of Moshe, and that's why, as the Gemara said, Ki'ilu Yoldo, it's as if he gave birth. And then what happens? He marries one of the daughters, Sipporah. Things get worse for the children of Israel. And then what happens? Page 300. Moshe is out there tending to the flock. Perigimel. Moshe was roa et son. He was shepherding the flock of Yitro, his father-in-law, Kohen Midian, and he brought them out to the Midbar. And he came El Har HaElokim. He came to the mountain of God in Chorev. What's the mountain of God? Har Sinai. Why is it called the mountain of God? Al Shem HaAtid, on the future, what it will be. And what happened? An angel of God appeared to him, Balabat Eish, in a fire mitoch hasneh, within the sneh. Vayar, and he saw, Vihinei hasneh bo'er be'eish, the sneh was burning, but was not going to be consumed. That represented Moshe. You will go to Paro, but you'll enter the fire. You will not be consumed. You will not be burned over there. The children of Israel, with what they are going through, Einenu Ukal, they will not be consumed. And for all generations, we will not be consumed. There'll be fires all around. We will not be consumed. Am Yisroel Chai. You know, it's interesting, Mary Sachs points out, Paro is the first one to call us an Am. Am b'nei Yisrael rav atzum mimenu. Right? This is the book, Shmot. Parsha was about individuals. This is the book of our being a nation. Moshe said, let me go see what this is. Pasuk Dalid. Vayar Hashem kisar lirot. God saw that he had turned to see. Right? Simple meaning that he had turned to see what's going on with this bush. But others explained, God saw that he had turned to see. When did he turn to see? That was back on page 298, Pasuk Yud Aleph, when he went out as a young man from the house of Paro, he went out vayar besivlotam, to see their burdens. Vayar ish mitzri, and he saw an ish mitzri beating him. Hashem saw that he was a sar lirot. He was a person who turned to see, and therefore he was the one who would be the deliverer, right? Because he felt the pain of others, he would be the one to be the delivery. I'll just end with I just saw a beautiful story about the Panovich Rav, who was a tremendous Rav who built the whole yeshiva Panovich, all of Bnei Brak, right? And when he was a young man, he was learning at a certain yeshiva, and he was traveling to go switch to a different yeshiva. On the way over there, he stopped off in Radin. Radin was a town in Poland where the Chafetz Chaim lived. He wanted to meet the Chafetz Chaim. He's waiting there, and he hears these anguished cries coming from the other room. And he jumped up to go run to see if he could help. What's going on? The Chafetz Chaim's wife said to him, no. Don't go there. You could say, what's going on? No, he just heard about a woman who's having problems with childbirth. And he's praying. He's praying on behalf of that woman. But there were these anguished cries as if he himself was going through who knows what. The Panovich Rav said right then and there, I'm not going to any other yeshiva. I'm staying right here to learn by the Chafetz Chaim. If that's who he is, if he is such a person who everyone is echav, everyone is his brothers, he's sar lirot, he turns to see what do people need and care deeply about what other people need and does whatever he can to help others in need, I'm staying right here. Hashem saw that he was sar lirot. He was a person who had embodied that Moshe, that which Batya had put into him, and this was then the start of the Geula, the start of the redemption. We'll call it over here. I'm away next Tuesday, so we will pick up, please God. You guys want to learn on your own? More than welcome to. Let it.
I have heritage court next Tuesday.
Oh, it works out well for you. Okay. So I will not be leading the class next Tuesday. I will pick up in 2 weeks' time, Ezra.
Rabbi, 2 questions.
Yes.
So if this was a righteous act, how come Moshe felt he had to hide the Mitzri that he smote? I mean, couldn't he have gone to Paro and said, I stopped this excessive...
I stopped your officer from beating a slave.
Yeah, meaning destroying your property.
We see how well it went over.
I get it, but then...
So he knew how well it would go over, and the proof is in the pudding. That's how well it went over. When Paro heard, he wanted to kill him. He wanted to kill Moshe.
And then would this suggest that since Batya and Kalev married, that Batya went in the Exodus, left Egypt?
Yeah, that would suggest that.
Good question.
Good point.
And she wasn't part of the multitudes then. She was actually part of Bnei Yisrael by then?
That's what it would seem. Duly noted. Nice point, Janet.
And you said she was married to Caleb?
Yeah.
How did that happen in the palace of the Pharaoh?
Huh? It might have happened at a later point. Once the Pharaoh was being...
Is this like a midrash, or is this like...
This is the Gemara, based on the pasuk in Divrei Hayamim.
I don't know what that is.
Chronicles. It's a book in Chronicles. Okay. It's a verse in the book of Chronicles. Yeah.
Also, Yisroel had so many names also.
Yeah. So does God. Yeah. Meaning a name represents different facets of who we are. Right? One of my first years here, I was having dinner Friday night by the Hepners, and the twins were little kids then. Rabbi Ciner, why does God have so many names? So I said, well, I'll tell you, I'm. Some people call me Dad. Some people call me Grandpa. Some people call me my brother. People call me son. People call me friend. People call me Rabbi. I have many names. There's Rabbi Ciner, Rabbi Eugene, Rav Yisroel. It all depends at what point. What point? Huge. I have lots of names, right? And each one of those names describes a different relationship that I have, right? And Hashem has many modes of relating with us, and that's why Hashem has all those different names, as does a Moshe, as does a Yitro, right? As do really each of us, in our many different connections that we have, as we work our way through what we call life over here. Okay, my friends, we'll call it over here. Shavua Tov, everybody, a good week. Rosa, good to have you back.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Yeah.